Hi, everybody. David Noor. Hi, everybody. David Noor. I want to welcome you to one of my favorite approaches in engaging really fascinating, really interesting friends, clients, partners. And I call these in conversation. And I'm elated that my guest today is a longtime friend. And I got to tell you, when I first heard this news, I was taken back a little, but the more you think about it, the more it made a lot of sense that Clark Dean is running to become the next governor of state of Georgia. Clark, welcome.
Well, good to see you, David. Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you. For those that may not know as much about you, your background, can you just briefly talk about where you've been, what you've done, and how you've gotten here?
Of course. Well. First, as it came as a surprise to you and many others, I'm actually not a politician, right? So this is not my jam. And people often ask, they're like, "When's the last time you ran for elected office?" It was actually student government president in high school. I did win, and we had a great year. So rock and roll. But we've done a lot. I've done a lot since then. So hopefully, be building on that. I'm a husband of 28 years. I got 3 kids. I still call them kids. 26, 24, 22, 2 boys and a little girl. Baby girl is graduating from college this year. I got a call the other night. You're an academic excellence person, so I know you'll appreciate this. I get this call, and I'm at dinner, and I see it's my daughter calling. It's pretty late, so I get up, and I'm like, "Yeah, you all right?" And she said, "Dad, I got Phi Beta Kappa," and I'm like, "Awesome!" So go Virginia. So we're very excited about that. I often talk about the fact that I'm a son of community, and how important it has been, and how blessed I've been just to have had so many great mentors in my life. I'm an Eagle Scout for the Boy Scouts of America program. I got to go through the American Legion Boy State program that ironically teaches kids about state government and how to get involved and do that kind of thing. I was elected by my peers as most outstanding senator in Boy State. So I know a little bit about it. I came back as a counselor and served that program when I was in college as well. I grew up in youth group. I'm a kid that just was at the church a bunch. And I went on my first mission trip when I was in 8th grade, serving kids in the inner city. And I never missed another one. It changed my life. And I still do a lot of mission work today. And I'm a kid that got to play what I think is the greatest team sport ever invented, American football. That's, you got to love football when you're in the South, but it really is. You got, everybody has to do their role. Everybody has a part to play, and everything has to work the right way in order to win. And, I got to learn a lot of things about grit and determination doing that, especially since I was like an offensive lineman, right? So it's not a glory spot, but you learn a lot about personal sacrifice and what it takes to really serve others. To make things happen. So I enjoyed that, went off to college, studied biomedical engineering until I took a class by Marty Feldstein. You remember Marty? So it was Ronald Reagan's economic policy advisor, the guy that stamped out stagflation. And I realized that all this mathematical modeling I was doing to study biological systems could apply to business. And it didn't require 7 years of FDA approval. So I was like, let's go. So my whole career has really been a client service career based on real estate, management consulting, and finance. And I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of big companies, big nonprofits, small businesses. Got to work with Elizabeth Dole on my very first project, doing a 750,000 square foot project in downtown Washington. So I've been at the intersection of business and government. In that particular project, not only it was federal land, so I had to deal with that. But I also had to deal with this mayor. You might remember Marion Barry. Remember that guy? I mean, so you just learn a lot through business and the way. And then I've been a big in my free time. I've loved to serve, and so I spent a lot of years in Rotary and Rotary Club of Atlanta. I was the youngest president of that club, the largest club in the state of Georgia, actually the 4th largest in the world, and the only one that has a membership cap, so it'll never be any bigger. But got to do like really great things with Rotarians and meeting Rotarians all over the state, which has been really powerful because I feel like organizations like that, they see needs and then they meet needs by just bringing community together to solve them. They're not waiting on the government to get in. They just go fix things. And I love that about nonprofits. you have the chair-elect of Shepherd Center. So Shepherd Center is a brain and spine hospital here in Atlanta, which I've been on the board of for 15 years now. I've learned a lot about high quality healthcare. I've learned a lot about vision-driven leadership from the folks there. And I've been on a bunch of different boards. Got to chair the Chick-fil-A Foundation Advisory Board, which was great. And I've been involved, chaired the Board of Counselors at the Carter Center. So I've done a lot of things that have all culminated saying like, man, I love what we've been able to accomplish during my free time, doing this extracurricular activities. What would it be like if I could get a job where I did that all the time? And I really think there's like this great fusion of what I've done professionally, which is all about large complex transactions all over the country and around the world across a lot of different sectors, advanced manufacturing and industrial, office space, sports and entertainment, data centers. I've done a lot of data center work, but always serving clients. And the work I've done in the community, because I feel like the governor of the state of Georgia, it's the greatest client service job in the state, where you've got 11 million clients, 11 million clients. And so to me, I've been trying to get out there and meet them. I feel like, I'm trying to do what I feel like, sadly, a lot of politicians don't do, and that is like listen, right? So, because if you're going to serve clients, you got to understand the client. You got to understand what they're trying to do and what they really want, what's important to them. So I've been spending a lot of time over the last 6 months going all over the state, sitting down with folks. I ask them, what do they love about their communities? I ask them what they think is the biggest opportunity in their communities. And then I always ask them, what's breaking your heart? What's breaking your heart? That's when it gets real. That's when it gets real.
So thank you for that fabulous background. For our audience, if you just joined us, this is in conversation with longtime friend and Georgia gubernatorial candidate, Clark Dean. We're going to talk a lot about leading Georgia's future. And what I appreciate is Clark's vision as an outsider to really think and lead differently. We're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X. I would encourage you jump in with questions, comments you may have, or ideas or perspectives that you want Clark to talk about. Let's talk about vision and leadership. Your campaign, Clark, emphasizes this outsider leadership. And I love that lens. I love that freshness and solutions over politics. What can you talk about a specific experience in business or community service that you mentioned that you would say most directly shapes your approach in how you would govern?
Wow. Well, I think I'll use an example. I'll use a nonprofit example because I think a lot of we learn a lot through nonprofits about leadership, because a lot of the nonprofit leadership is you're leading people who are volunteers and they don't have to be there, and they're not getting paid, right? So you gotta it's got to be really good to get people to go after it. So one thing, and it's an organization that, as you know, has meant a lot to me, but it's is the story of Covenant House, Georgia. And how we really pulled an incredible group of people together to take that organization to new heights at a time when it was really struggling. So I went through Leadership Atlanta as you did as well. And while I was going through Leadership Atlanta, we had a project group. And the project group, we were supposed to do a mentoring program for Covenant House, Georgia. Well, we went down there and met the kids, met the executive director. We were seeing what was going on. It was a small facility, about 15 beds down in Polar Rock, which is a neighborhood south of Atlanta. And the kids really had to walk a gauntlet to get to the bus stop. I mean, it was a tough place to be. And they were putting another 10 kids on floor mats. I say kids, these are 18 to 22-year-old homeless youth. And they had 200 kids on a waiting list. 200 kids on a waiting list. And I started this conversation with the executive director, and I said, well, gosh, have you thought about expanding? I mean, you got this huge need. And she said, we'd love to, but we actually just contracted our budget. Well, what we were able to do, and I think this is, to me, exemplifies leadership and getting things done, is we said, well, all right, well, I'd heard of an opportunity for a larger facility on the west side of Atlanta. I didn't know much about it, but I asked her if she'd like to learn more about it. Let's go explore it together. And so we went over and explored it together. We realized this would be perfect, but there was no way that they could afford it. So I reached out to one of my good friends, Ann Curry, who's got a great business and helps advise a lot of nonprofits. And I said, hey, Ann, do you think it'd be possible to do something like this to help this tiny organization acquire this 7-acre, 60,000 square foot facility on the West Side? And she said she'd look into it, which she did. And she came back and she said, yes, this is too good. This is too good of an opportunity. And so what proceeded there, and I'm about building teams, and I don't take credit for stuff. A lot of hands, make for light work. And we're very blessed to get a lot of people in this effort to help acquire and fund that. And, building relationships. I got a lot of relationships in Rotary. Wells Fargo actually had the note on this facility. They're about to foreclose on it. Mike Donnelly had just joined our Rotary Club, reached out to Mike. Candy Moore was actually in our Leadership Atlanta class. She was involved in community, engagement for Wells Fargo. So we're able to work it from multiple ends to actually acquire that facility. We raised about $4 million, but the facility cost less than half of that. Now, this is 7 acres on the west side of Atlanta. So it was an extraordinary deal, very close to what is now the West Side Park. And in a matter of months, like when we first started having this conversation, within a year, we were actually mobilizing a group of executives to sleep out on that property, having closed on that property, to raise money so that we could fully renovate that facility and give thousands of kids promise and hope, breaking the cycle of homelessness, getting them the education they need, getting them the jobs they need, and getting them back on their feet. And to me, I think it's a great example of how when leadership comes together with relationships, you put the right people around problems, you can solve big, thorny issues. And we certainly haven't solved youth homelessness, but we're taking a big bite out of it. And nothing makes me happier when I run into Covenant House kids in the community, and they'll come up to me like, Mr. Dean, remember me? And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I do. And so proud.
Love that. Build on that. One of the things I've heard you talk about is shared prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about immediate action on day one? How do you achieve that? How do you, just briefly, how do you get that shared prosperity vision off the ground day one?
Right. So, look, a lot of people have talked about the fact that Atlanta, Georgia is a big state, right? We got 159 counties. Atlanta's a big city. And if you look at one of the biggest challenges we have in the city, it's actually this income disparity. Like you look, there's a massive gap. And so the question is, how do you close that gap? I believe the conservative American principles and free enterprise and free markets can actually solve that problem. But we have to invest in job training programs and those sorts of things, which are actually really cost effective. The key is getting people jobs. Like what we have to do is get people in a position, people all over the state, in a position where they can reach up and grab onto that ladder of prosperity and climb up it, right? You're never supposed to just like hang on the bottom rung. Like the whole idea is to climb up that ladder of prosperity. And there are great organizations and nonprofits in our state that have excellent programs. We don't have to like reinvent the wheel. I'll use an example, Goodwill of North Georgia, phenomenal organization. They have, they cover the whole state with a number of different organizations. And this is incredibly powerful. These programs that within, the 9 to 12 weeks, they can put somebody through a program and actually give them a real job that pays like 80 grand a year. Like for a moment, just think about that. Mm-hmm. This is like, and these are not highly skilled jobs. These do not require 4-year college degrees. These are jobs that people can get and start capturing that dignity of work and start caring for their families. That brings stability and hope and promise. Programs like the Home Depot. Home Depot has this Pathway to Pro program for electricians and plumbers, where it's a free program, right? But people don't know about it. They're doing a good job marketing, but like we need to make sure that Georgians are taking this challenge to get out there and get these jobs and to get the training required to be able to excel and to be able to care for their families. And I'm challenging. I'd love to see over 100,000 people within the first quarter that I'm governor. I'd like to see 100,000 Georgians get into these programs, and literally by the end of that quarter, they'll have jobs, real jobs in community, making real money. And that solves so many problems,
Uh,
so many problems.
you brought up absolutely jobs, and again I think innate empowerment that you feel like you contribute, you matter. Switch gears to, and let's build on that, the economy and affordability.
Mhm.
From housing to healthcare, affordability I know is a central theme to your campaign and something you really are passionate about.
Mhm.
How would you practically tackle cost pressures for working families?
Yeah. Well, you got to do it holistically and with systems thinking. I mean, that's the problem is it can't just be a government handout because that works for a short period of time and then people get right back to it. It does have to be getting more people jobs, right? So they can earn more money to go buy stuff. And part of the problem with affordability right now is that people aren't making enough money to be able to buy the stuff that's out there. But the real magic happens is when you can do economic growth in a way that actually brings down prices too. And let me explain. One of the great examples to me is in our agriculture business. Agriculture is one of the largest industry. It is the largest industry in Georgia. I mean, it's $90 billion industry, phenomenal. And yet, when you look at what we grow, what our farmers grow, almost 40% of it goes wasted. Right. And the reason is, once you grow it, you harvest it, you got a limited shelf life to get it to grocery stores and markets and those kinds of things. Well, there's a real opportunity in our state for targeted food processing, where we can actually hire people. If we get targeted food processing established in communities around rural Georgia that are aligned with the agricultural products that they're growing in those regions, and we can employ people who have been through our TCSG programs, the Technical College System of Georgia, which is outstanding, and they've got a lot of culinary programs. Those people can then actually prepare these vegetables, cutting and seasoning them, et cetera, freezing them. So now they have longer shelf life, and then putting that into the food ecosystem of Georgia. Now, by doing that, not only are we allowing the farmers to monetize more of their crop, we're also bringing jobs into rural Georgia that actually ends this whole population erosion. I mean, we're on a bit of I hate to call it a death spiral, but it kind of is. I mean, you look at these, unfortunately, when communities start losing people and the population goes down, then the demand for service jobs goes down and everything just starts plummeting. We can bring that back by applying what I refer to as economic acupuncture. Right. So you don't need a big government program, but if you understand the constraint in a geography, an industry, or sector, you put a little needle in there and expands that constraint and allows for that geography, industry, or sector to flourish. I think that's what we need to do. And it's not just in agriculture. I mean, there are opportunities, I think, in targeted food processing. There are opportunities. We don't have enough high quality, accessible abattoirs of meat packing in the state of Georgia, which could unlock growth in our cattle industry and our ranching livestock industry that has a lot of promise. We have some great grasslands in Georgia that could really be much better utilized. So we've got a lot of things in rural Georgia that we could bring back, and obviously all the things that you and I know living here in Metro Atlanta. There's some extraordinary potential growth in all sorts of technology sectors. I mean, you're a technology entrepreneur, right? I mean, the talent, the capabilities that we have here in order to really grow our economy. I'll mention there are two signature programs that I'm working on right now, and I haven't talked about them broadly publicly yet, but I'll roll this out to you. The first really gets to this point of the importance of small business growth. And the problem that a lot of small businesses have, most small businesses that fail don't fail because they have bad leadership, and they don't fail because they don't have capital. They fail because they don't have customers. Like they're providing a good or service that they don't have enough people that want to buy. And so the key is, how do you focus small business entrepreneurs on solutions, on providing services and products that people do want to buy? And one of the best ways to do that is identifying problems that need to be solved, where the solution to that problem is highly valuable. Like, people want to buy that solution. So I intend in the beginning of 2027 to launch a Georgia marketplace of problems worth solving effort. that uses the convening power of government to identify leaders across geographies, industries, and sectors to point out these problems and to define these problems that need to be solved. So then we can focus the energy of entrepreneurs, small businesses, and innovators on these problems, knowing that there's great profit potential and societal benefit on the other side of them. And complementing that, we have this governor's initiative for relationship-driven capital. So most small businesses fail because of lack of customers, but small businesses also need capital, and it's a problem. I mean, it's difficult to get loans, banks, or I mean, it's very complicated, especially if you've never done it before.
Mm.
But what I know is that money tends to follow relationship and trust. At the end of the day, it follows relationship and trust. It's why, people talk about all these old boy networks. Old boy networks are not these like, dark room mysterious things. It's just people who have been friends for a long time. Right. And in every level of our society, we have rooms of people that have known each other for a long time that would run through brick walls for each other. The key is, how do we intentionally connect people in productive relationships across the state so that investors who have developed capital, have found their own success, have built companies, have solved problems, can actually come into contact with the next generation of leaders, the next generation of investors that may not have any money. They might have a big idea, or they have the work ethic, but they don't have that. And if we can connect those people through this governor's initiative for relationship-driven capital, then we can start fundamentally building those relationships through which capital can flow. That's not government capital. It's using the convening power of the government to identify free market opportunities to create jobs all across the state. And I think there's opportunities like that at great scale.
You're orchestrating, seekers and solvers. You're orchestrating getting the right resources to the right people for the right reasons. For our audience, if you just joined us, you're listening to Clark Dean, longtime friend and a fabulous candidate for the upcoming Georgia gubernatorial race. We've got some comments. Jeff Gray's joining us. He also has an idea of get certifications while inside high school.
Absolutely.
Businesses in the state start allowing students in their last 2 years of high school to get certifications for technical skills when they graduate, like the Central Education Center in Noonan. So that's a great one.
It's a great idea. Jeff, kudos for that. In fact, we've been talking a lot about it with education. The way I look at education and some of the immediate points that we need to fix in education starts with early childhood education, right? So that's, and a lot of viewers might know that, your brains develop most between 0 and 4. And in fact, if you look at a graph from 0, your brain development's up here and it goes like this. It drops down, right? Now there's hope for all of us. There's neuroplasticity goes on forever, which is good, or until you die. But from 0 to 4, your brains largely get formed. And so it's really important for intellectual and emotional growth of your brain to have proper early childhood education. So that's something, and again, there's a lot of great nonprofits. We're not trying to reinvent the world with a big government program, but there's some things we can lean into there. The next part is literacy. Guys, we have a massive literacy problem in the state of Georgia. And people are saying it's getting better, and it is. And we've passed some legislation last session that has been helping, but the problem is we've actually had curricula in our schools that doesn't actually teach kids how to read. And that's shocking. It teaches them how to pass the tests that score them on how well they can read, but it doesn't actually teach them how to read. And that's a problem. So we are in the process of transforming that, which is good. And then we move on to high school, the stuff that Jeff's talking about. In high school, we need to and there are some successful programs down in Augusta. They got a cool program in different parts of the state where they're actually creating internship opportunities for kids in high school to start putting some of the math and science and things that they're learning in school and connecting it with real world jobs in the community where they can actually start earning money in high school, working in a mechanic shop, or working for an HVAC contractor, or working for a plumber, doing some things to see, hey, is this something I want to do? Because if it is something they want to do, there's a different path they can take to be business owners themselves, pillars in the community, and start creating more jobs in businesses they create even faster than their compatriots that end up going off to four-year college. And we need to first of all, we need to destigmatize. Those are super important jobs, and those are business owners that, quite frankly, do a lot better than a lot of the rest of us. I helped my cousin start a plumbing company when we were in our 20s. He didn't finish college. Super smart guy, but it just wasn't for him. He started that company. I think he's done better than I have. I mean, so there's a huge opportunity to create those pathways, and we need to start early in high school. I totally agree.
I had a chance to meet Mike Rowe of the Dirty Jobs fame, and he is such a strong advocate of the trades. So last time I checked, ChatGPT can't finish building that building for any of us.
That's right.
And there's a massive shortage of plumbers and electricians and HVAC technicians and on and on and on. So,
and construction jobs. I mean, I've got a lot of friends in the construction business. And I mean, one of the reasons why construction and housing gets expensive is when you don't have enough people to do those jobs. And, we're not 3D printing buildings yet. I mean, there are some little examples of it, but I mean, we're not doing that at scale. So you need people to go do stuff. And those are great jobs. And they also teach you things like project management and budgeting and all of these things that construction folks do really, really well.
I love Jeff's comment as well, helping moms, understand and believe that a blue collar job can be an unbelievable career. So Jeff, absolutely. Switch gears to healthcare for a second.
Yeah.
One of the things I've heard you talk about is, and you brought this up, Georgia faces a real significant disparity in healthcare access, Clark, particularly in rural areas.
That's right.
How would I love your biomedical and kind of healthcare background. How would that inform your policy priorities as governor?
Yeah. Well, the first is understanding how the system works, and the system's messed up. I mean, just to be clear. Now, there's only so much we can fix from governor. You sort of got to go higher than that to fix some of the systemic federal issues, right? But we can do a lot in the state. And the fact of the matter is, if you take a systems thinking approach that is both relational and analytical, and I think that's really important, David. When I did management consulting, one of the biggest things I learned from these consultants, and they were sort of consultants in many ways. They had been former C-level officers of insurance companies and banks. And they were tired of having big consulting firms, drop a big stack of recommendations on their desk and move on. They did business turnarounds. And it was all about both relational and analytical problem solving. So if we look at the healthcare, we look at these disparities, these gaps, especially in rural Georgia, the question is, how can we fill those gaps creatively in ways that creates new jobs and reduces the friction around getting care? I'll use an example because it's one that is really, it's one of my kind of signature things I'm really frustrated by. We're like second to dead last in maternal mortality in the state of Georgia, which means we got a lot of moms that are dying in childbirth. And by the way, their babies die too. Like it is horrible. Like this is something that we can fix. We should not be second to dead last in the country in. But what we have to do is we have to get mothers, pregnant women, to be able to have access to healthcare. And if you catch problems early, then they don't compound into very expensive, life-threatening issues later on in the pregnancy. Well, a very elegant solution to this it came actually through some conversations that I started having this summer around this, talking with some folks at McKinsey who are experts in women's health, and then speaking with the president down at Wesleyan College, which is actually the oldest college, the oldest conferrer of degrees on women in the world. Very interesting. 1836 was when it was formed, right in Macon, Georgia. And in conversations with her about expanding some of their programs to create job opportunities for their students and career pathways while also making a difference in the state, she was really taken with this idea of doing something that would make a difference and make an impact in maternal mortality and identifying an opportunity. So right now, a lot of the problem is you have these rural areas. It's too far for them to drive to get to these medical cores, the hospitals, where you would have proper OBGYN care. Now, if you look at other states around the country, some have solved this problem with midwives. Now, midwifery is science-based, and midwives actually practice under the direction of an OB, right? So it's not, this is not something less than that. This is actually extending the care reach of OBGYNs into communities that are difficult to reach. However, in the state of Georgia, that degree program requires an RN and it requires a master's degree in order to be certified as a midwife. So it can take 6 to 8 years to get that program. We're in the process right now of exploring an opportunity to create a 4-year undergraduate credential degree in midwifery that would enable undergraduates to go out and be able to practically perform these skills, meeting with these mothers, help them make sure they're on the right neonatal path, leading all the way up to pregnancy under the direction of OBGYNs in those regional areas, creating jobs in rural areas in a very short period of time, and actually expanding that coverage of care in a way that's actually very cost effective. That's an example of the kind of thing we can do, and only one small example on a host of those kind of examples for healthcare. Community health workers, in a more generalized sense, perform very much the same kind of function. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to take a hard look of how we deliver care, increasing the supply of healthcare workers in our communities. Not only creates jobs in communities, it creates better access to care and better health outcomes.
And what I love about that is it's very consistent with conservative values. You're not, as you said, You're not giving out handouts. Let's create jobs. Let's create less friction, less bureaucracy. Let's help, those that are not as fortunate with access to kind of create that path for them. So, talking about governance and something you and I've talked about is this unfortunate, partisanship that's kind of prevalent in our world today. With no statewide incumbents in this race and a really competitive field, how would you build coalition? I want to talk about, really, and again, what I appreciate is you talking about bridging. So across party lines, business leaders, obviously, that you have a lot of deep relationships with, but getting things done with people who may not see the same challenge, same priority, same path for the result.
No, it's a great question, and it's one that I get a lot because I have not, I've not served in an office under the Gold Dome up to this point, right? So people are like, well, how are you going to build relationships with legislators? How are you going to get things done in the General Assembly? And the fact of the matter is what I found even just over the past 6 months, there's a way to build good relationships with folks, and a lot of it has to do with just being authentic, being genuine, actually caring about the other person, trying to understand where they're coming from, and understand what their priorities are. So what I found is historically, I found that doing that in my own life, I have what I call very good friends across a broad political spectrum. And maybe I learned this in college because I had a lot of, coming from this conservative Southern kid from Alabama going to Harvard, it was a different experience, but I learned how to build healthy relationships and friendships with folks that I may disagree with. And what I found is if you create healthy relationships with people, they know that you actually care about them as a person because you do, then it allows you to debate the issues in a really different way, in a more effective way, a way that really leads more to what I call collaborative problem solving. And so that we can actually converge around solutions that are durable solutions down the road. And it's a really effective, there's actually a great book called Convergence that talks a lot about this style of leadership and converging around problems when you can define them at a higher level and understand all the interests of all the parties involved. You can actually stimulate the relational foundation to enable collaborative problem solving to advance towards those solutions. In government, is really no different. The key is actually you gotta intentionally go build those relationships, and that's what I intend to do, and it's what I've already been doing. Quite frankly, is building relationships with legislators in the House and the Senate, across agencies, just understanding like who they are, where they're coming from, what are they trying to do, what are they frustrated by, what are their hopes, their fears, their dreams, right? I mean, these are the kinds of things that you do to like actually build relationships, and then we can actually get things done together. What I found is people across the spectrum, they want stronger communities. They want a stronger state. They want healthier families. They want more jobs. They want more promise and opportunity. They want the American dream. And that American dream, and Thomas Jefferson was brilliant, right? It wasn't life, liberty, and property, like Locke said. It wasn't even life, liberty, and happiness. It was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's this opportunity that we have in America that is so powerful, is that driving thesis. The key is, how do we actually accomplish that so that everyone in the state, everyone that calls Georgia home, can believe that the American dream is for them? And that is by doing some of the foundational things correct, but some of these job programs we were talking about, being able to have healthcare so that people can actually keep working. If you get an amputation because you got diabetes, because you didn't have your blood pressure taken, you end up with hypertension and diabetes, then it's hard to work. But if you solve these problems early in healthcare, it can actually allow people to live more enriched and thriving lives. And I think most people want that. So to me, it starts relationally and then it's driven analytically. And all these folks, we've got some great people under the Dual Dome. I'm telling you, I have loved meeting the folks there. It is extraordinary. And I believe that the way our Constitution is set up, the way the governor's office, the whole executive branch is set up, there's an opportunity to work really well with the legislature and do things that are outside of just conventional legislation to really drive problem solving forward by using the convening power of government and spotlighting opportunities to create growth. And I think that's where an outsider coming in is different, because if you've had a whole career as a legislator, everything you see in terms of dropping a bill. Everything's got to be a bill. In fact, the matter is, there are a lot of great bills out there. There's a lot of good work that's being done down there this session. There's a lot of stuff that you can solve without dropping a bill. And so we got to think more broadly about how do we solve these problems? What kind of bills do we really need? And what kind of bills do we not need that actually make it more difficult to solve problems, right? And I think that's the key, is to really work together as an efficient, effective government to deliver the promise to people.
For our audience, if you just joined us, you're listening to longtime friend and the Georgia gubernatorial candidate, Clark Dean. What I love is his not just a phenomenal educational foundation. You don't meet too many gubernatorial candidates who are biomedical engineering educated, but he's also a community servant and absolutely an entrepreneur. And what I appreciate is, between affordability and healthcare, education and economic growth, he has a very different vision for the future of Georgia. We're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X. I would encourage you to jump in if you have questions, comments for Clark. One of the challenges, and Clark, I've always believed, if you don't get involved with politics, government, voting, you're left with those that do, and you're going to be governed by people that you may have not chosen in that process. A lot of voters feel disconnected from government. Mm-hmm. What would you do differently to foster transparency, accountability, public trust, and getting particularly your kids and my kids more engaged, more involved, not just exclusively, but bring them along on that journey that this is truly government of the people, by the people?
Absolutely. Well, it starts with the election, right? So again, this is the first election I've sat in this seat. Every other election I've sat on the other side of this. And what I've been frustrated by, look, we've got some good public servants that are doing great work. But a lot of times politicians tend to make elections all about themselves. And it's always frustrated me. It's like, is it really? I mean, and so the way I'm approaching the election is, look, this election isn't about me. And in fact, it's actually not about any of these guys. What it is, it's about you. It's about people. It's about you, the citizen of Georgia. Like, what do you want? What are your hopes, your dreams for your family, for your community, for your state? That is what the election should be about. And I think as a leader, I want to actually make it about you. It's not about me. It's not about the government. It's about you, the people in the state. And what I found is that as you ask people those questions, I mentioned earlier, the question that I asked that always gets really real is, what's breaking your heart? And when people start sharing what's breaking their heart in their community, but then you start realizing that there are these root causes and things that you can attack to bring back hope. that people want that in their politicians. People don't want a bunch of finger pointing to point out why things are bad now. You got heartbreak. Oh, well, this is why you got heartbreak, because of that guy. Vote for me instead. People want real solutions that stop the heartbreak. And to me, there are a lot of opportunities to stop the heartbreak, but we're not going to get there with conventional political solutions. It's just not going to get there. So that's why we need that fresh perspective, but also the change of focus. It's also, and I'll tell you, and you and I have talked about this a lot, the importance of philosophy and ideas, because thoughts matter, words matter. And the fact of the matter is, I had this coach in high school. Actually, it was ninth grade, so it was junior high. And he took us the first day the first day he was a coach. Actually, I should say we lost every game in eighth grade, so we got a new football coach, right? So the new football coach comes in and he's like, "We're going to change everything." He sits us down in the classroom and writes the word "thought" on a board, and he says, "Gentlemen, everything you do starts with a thought. Everything, because thoughts lead to actions." He wrote actions. Then actions repeated over and over again form habits, and patterns of habits over time form your character. He's like, so if we want to develop a winning character of this team, a winning culture of this team, we got to change what we think. So how do you change what you think? It's what you talk about. It's what you listen to. It's what you watch. It's the stuff that we're putting in our minds all the time that ultimately manifests itself in who we are. And so if we aspire to have a government that is better than it is today, if we aspire to have political leaders that are different than we have today, we got to start thinking differently. And what I've found is when I'm out there and I talk about the hope and promise undergirded with substance and creativity and capabilities to actually solve problems and do things that nobody else is talking about, it gets people excited and gives them a sparkle of hope. And my favorite example of this is I was out in Haralson County in West Georgia a couple of weeks ago, and I just given a little speech, answered some questions, and at the end of the meeting, I'm saying goodbye to everybody, and this little boy, with his big glasses, just runs up to me, "Mr. Dean, Mr. Dean," he goes, "I got an idea." I was like, "Tell me." He's got a name tag on, Stetson. I'm like, "Stetson, tell me what your idea." He goes, "I got an idea for a campaign slogan." I'm like, "What you got?" And he goes, "Don't be mean. Vote for Clark Dean." And I was just like, and he was so excited.
That's a t-shirt right there.
Oh my gosh. And then he goes home and he draws it. He draws a picture of his house with a sign that has dimensions on everything. And his grandmother texted it to me, like, "Look what Stetson did." And isn't that what we want? Don't we want leadership to inspire our youngsters to say, "Man, I believe this American dream thing is real. It's exciting." I want leaders that get us excited about government again, that make us want to get into that remind us not to be mean, but to go get things done that make a difference. And to me, that is why I'm doing it. I mean, people say, "Why are you running?" I'm running for you. I'm running for little guys like Stetson. The future of this country, it deserves more than what we got right now. And I think what we can bring is so powerful for making Georgia literally a superpower state.
And I know and I love watching, following you on social and our conversations. You really are covering the state, having a lot of great conversation with people. And I got to tell you, from just one voter, and I think, most people feel this way, a candidate that constantly is trashing or is against something doesn't really bode that confidence, because at the end of the day, I don't know, what is it that you stand for? Okay, you hate that person or you disagree with that policy and that approach, fine. What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What will you do differently? That, you've heard me talk about this. If anybody's ever tried pushing a rope, it doesn't work. How do you create gravity? How do you create pull? And I'd really, again, appreciate from, affordability to healthcare, to education, to workforce, to really governing, and hopefully bipartisanship, or these are all refreshing. And I think that outsider's lens helps you in a big way. In our last few minutes together, what are you most excited about? What are you concerned about over this race and over the next few months?
Well, I'm most excited about, May 19th, baby. May 19th, primary day, right? So I'm geared up. I'm excited. I'm excited about the promise. I'm excited about meeting people, as I call them, my clients. The client, all 11 million of them in the state of Georgia. I can't meet 11 million people. So it's through things like this that help me get to know more people than I'm actually going to be able to sit in a room with. And so thank you for giving me this opportunity to come on your podcast. But for me, I'm excited about what problems are we going to be able to define between now and May 19th? And what solutions can we start building and creating? And it's really fun. I've got this working plan, and we talked about my ASAP plan for Georgia before. I know we haven't mentioned it today, but the idea is this listening tour that I've been on. I was listening. I put all this stuff together in what I call the ASAP plan for Georgia, which we need to do as soon as possible. It focuses on affordability, which we talked a good bit about here. It talks about strength, talks about accessibility and prosperity for all Georgians as soon as possible. We talked a lot about the affordability bit. That's, food and grocery affordability, it's housing affordability, it's tax policy. For strength, it's efficient and effective government. It's safe communities, which, gosh, is so important. We got to make sure that we're doing all the right things to make our communities safe. It's about energy policy and infrastructure. Accessibility, we talked a lot about education and healthcare and hitting those points. Those are priorities under accessibility, making sure that, we have accessibility from a great education from cradle to career, and that we've got accessibility to healthcare that solves problems early before they become much more complicated, difficult, and expensive. And then it's always about prosperity. It's really thinking creatively about how do we leverage what we have in this free market right now to take it to the next level, to create real jobs and opportunity for folks so that they don't have to be reliant on someone else, so that they can have that sense of dignity of what it's like to be a productive member of society and actually do things. And look, we've got low unemployment right now, which is awesome, but we can really expand and grow to where everybody has a job, and not just any job, have really good jobs. And we can move up that ladder of prosperity together through some of these programs we've talked about. And so to me, I get really excited about that. I get really excited about seeing things that are working well in communities already, identifying these opportunities for economic acupuncture that we talked about, and finding ways that the government, using its convening power and in the leverage of modest investment that is going to create a return, working with community organizations and community resources that are already proving to have success in those areas. I think we can really transform community to bring them back and repair the fabric of community. And to me, and Governor Kemp is working on some stuff right now, especially with homelessness, that does exactly that. That identifies organizations that are doing good work. There's a grant program to get them some grants to get the flywheel going on some of these things. But I think programs like that we need to take to the next level and look across a lot of our social problems, that we have in our community are being addressed by great organizations like Goodwill, I mentioned earlier, like Covenant House, and they're local ones in every community. And the key is understanding what those are, building those relationships, and creating opportunities to bring community together.
Again, for our audience, if you just joined us, you missed a good one. And I love this. We've got a LinkedIn user who says, I'm not from Georgia, but what a clear, lucid, positive, and wonderful discussion. So Clark, that's a test. So thank you for jumping in. But that's a testament to every time I interact with Clark Dean, he is relatable, he's personable, he's authentic. What you see, what you hear is exactly what you get. He married way above his pay grade. Let's be honest. People like his lovely bride much more than maybe she should run for governor.
Probably so. That'd be hard to get her to do that. She likes teaching. She enjoys doing that. But,
absolutely. But Clark Dean for governor is the Clark Dean for Georgia is that GA is the website. Encourage you to, if you get a chance, spend some time there. A lot of great ideas. Really appreciate your outsider and leadership, your perspective, your friendship, and can't wait to continue to sing your praises and support you however we can. If there's one thing the audience could do, Clark, whether they live in Georgia or not, how could they support you? How could they help your cause?
Well, so there's a lot of stuff that obviously the folks in Georgia, first of all, I want your vote. So please, I hope I can earn your confidence and your vote to allow me to serve you. I mean, that's what this is all about. This is a service job. It is a client service job, and you are the client. So I pray that you will choose me to get to serve you. I also asked for folks as part of that to get to know me better. follow me on my my Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and or X, and I even got TikTok. I don't know doing TikTok dances, but I got TikTok too. So across all the platforms, follow me. If you got ideas of things you want me to go see, or ideas of problems we need to solve, share online, and that helps build community and helps extend reach. So please do that. For folks that are on board that say, hey, this is our guy, let me know. I got a bunch of yard signs. We're spreading out all over the state. It was funny. I had the mayor of Augusta approach me at a luncheon recently, and he said, I see your signs all over town. I'm like, I love that. So it's not just here; it's around the whole state. So if you like a yard sign, you can send your address, and we'll get one to you. And if you believe in guys like me, look, I'm a small business guy who gets to work with big businesses. And so I know how to grow big business. I know how to do big, complicated things. But I'm a small business guy running for a very expensive office. And so if listeners really want to help support a guy like me to take on this job as a service job, I would really appreciate your financial support. And no amount's too small. All of it helps. And whether you live in Georgia or live outside of Georgia and like to see a guy like me lead Georgia, you can still give. But that would be really helpful for anybody that wants to put their investment behind somebody that really wants to make a difference and really wants to serve other people. I appreciate your support.
Again, Clark is not just a longtime friend, but I'm a big supporter. We've got a yard sign. We've got a yard sign in front of the house, and a big fan. And we're going to invite some friends to join us as well. Clark's also attended our last several relationship economic summits. He sent some of his colleagues. We've been to Dubai together. Mumbai. We went to Mumbai together, and Clark was instrumental in a global leadership program that I delivered, and the client raved about his energy and his insights. And so, longtime friend, just excited for you and this next chapter, and we'll do everything we can to support your efforts. Thanks for being a guest today.
Man, thanks so much, David. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Our pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Again, we'll see you soon on the next In Conversation with David Noor. Thanks. Take care. See you soon.